I'm Leo Leung, and I'm going to go over EMC Atmos today, as well as 3 key features that you should know about when you're talking to your customers: multi-tenancy, policy-based management, and data access and mobility. We're going to look at this diagram and start with the perspective of the administrator who's setting up the Atmos system. When you first start with the Atmos system, it typically comes in a setup that is 2 boxes that allow you to configure them as a single site or multiple sites. You could also do this with the Atmos Virtual Edition. It comes out of the box as a single tenant. I'm going to talk about tenancy now, where the entire environment is open and accessible to end users. What the administrator is able to do is they're able to create additional tenants, again, in that single system that they can manage. So why would they want to do that? Atmos allows customers to be able to run as a service, so to be able to offer storage as a service and serve multiple customers. They're also able to split up things like departments or different parts of the company into tenants. When they do that, they're basically isolating the data from the other tenants. So one tenant A cannot see tenant B's data and vice versa. You could also specify specific data management principles around a tenant. Right? So giving basically a custom infrastructure to different tenants. Finally, the tenants all are tracked separately by the system. So if you imagine a chargeback or billing type of model, again, as a service provider or an internal service provider, you're able to have that type of separate tracking of the environment. Typically what happens is the administrator sets this once and is done. Now I'm going to get into the data management policies that I just talked about. So one of the unique characteristics of Atmos is the ability to define data management and data efficiency through policy. So an example would be a customer that wants to have an environment that supports both free customers as well as premium customers. For the free customer, they may want a profile that's lower cost, slightly lower availability perhaps. For the premium customer, they may want to keep the data forever. So let's say P1 is for the free customer. They can specify a single copy, and in this case, EC stands for erasure coding. Atmos supports both full copy type behaviors as well as parity copies, which offer the same durability with less overhead. They can specify that they want that copy in a single site, again reducing the cost profile. And they could set a retention policy that keeps the data around for 30 days. For the second premium customer, they may want multiple copies, full copies this time, for the highest availability. They may want it across both sites for the ability to protect the data remotely. And they may want to keep the data forever. So in this way, with the Atmos system, you're able to service different customers with the same system simply by setting some policies. Tying it back to tenancy, let's say you can set a unique profile per tenant where tenant A, I just want the first policy available. Tenant B, I want both policies available. All right? So getting back to that, the policies enable you to set basically custom SLA profiles for the customer. You're able to protect the data in a variety of methods, again, object by object, full copy or erasure coding. And you're able to offer additional efficiency features like compression, deduplication, drive spin down, and the like, all set by policies. The next thing I'm going to cover is then the access and management of the system remotely. So Atmos has 2 buckets of access. The web services bucket, which includes REST and SOAP APIs, and file services, which includes CIFS, NFS, and a Red Hat-based installable file system. I'm going to spend time today on the web services, but the key point to know about the file services is the main reason why we built them is to give the customer the ability to migrate as they evolve their architecture. The majority of applications are still built using file service protocols. What we allow is the support of the customer to use them and over time migrate to the web service protocols without losing a step. They can create content the same way and then access it later with a different access method. So talking a little bit more about the web services APIs, that's another piece of special sauce that Atmos has. By allowing access using web services, you really take advantage of some key things that the internet provides. So if you think about the REST API, it's not a protocol, it's actually a programming style that leverages HTTP as the protocol and the way to communicate. So by using HTTP, you have all the goodness of the internet available. You have ubiquitous access, you have load balancing, and you have things like SSL, all enabled by the fact that you're traveling over the HTTP protocol. One additional thing is, in our API, we're also allowing metadata to be specified, and I'll get into that in a second. So going back to data access and mobility, you have the flexibility to be able to pick between web service and file service interfaces with the ability to interchange between them, as well as the ability to assign different access methods per tenant. So going back here a little bit, I could, for example, only specify web services access to tenant A, and I could specify web services and file services access to tenant B. You have the goodness of the internet behind the API. So as I said, you take advantage of all the features that the internet already provides. And finally, you have the ability to specify metadata. Right, so now going all the way to the end user, you have this ability to ubiquitously access the system through web services, through either custom applications or some of the pre-integrated applications we have already. So we have things like FMA integrated, Documentum, Networker, as well as some things that are a little bit different. We have an iPhone application that's in the Apple Store already that enables data movement, as well as a plugin, a simple plugin that works with Firefox, just to show you the ability to integrate with the system. Very, very easy to do, actually. Typically, our standard is 1 week for a single developer to build a prototype. So coming back from the user back into the system, you make the call to the API, which identifies yourself through a user ID and a shared secret, and then you're passing metadata, as I said. So once you're authenticated to the system, again, you have that ubiquitous access through the internet. The metadata actually defines which policies are appropriate for you, which tenant you belong to, right? And basically unlocks the custom profile that Atmos has for you. Back into the system, you then have access to be able to read, write, update content, and be able to work with the system. I will say that management also allows web services access. So circling back to the 3 key points, what I've shown you here is the ability to set up the system, the ability for the user to take advantage of the things that have been set up, and 3 key points about Atmos. Multi-tenancy, the ability to support and isolate multiple tenants within a single system. Policy-based management, the ability to really set this type of profile for the customer and forget it, and let the application do the job of picking those profiles. And then finally, the ability to access the system ubiquitously with a lot of the goodness that's in the internet. Thanks a lot for listening. Hope you're able to share these points with your customers, and great selling.